Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com, how to make your own wood snowman Christmas decoration. Now this carved wood snowman is just made out of a scrap piece of 2x8. It's whittled down with a couple of power tools, nothing very difficult, and it can be designed to be self-standing or wall hanging. The end result can be stained or it can be painted, or you can do a combination like I did and stain portions and paint other portions of the project. We're going to start by just sketching the outline of the snowman onto, this is actually just a scrap piece of 2x8 that I had, and then I'm going to cut out that outline with a jigsaw. It's a very fast process. The jigsaw goes through this pine very, very quickly. We're just going to take our time and slowly cut out that entire outline. All the black on the bottom of that 2x8 is just some paint that had been on the piece, and that'll get sanded off during the process. So here's the snowman. The hat's cut out, the face, and the shape of the body. I'm going to then go to a disc grinder with a flap sanding wheel. I happen to really enjoy this sander and that flap sanding wheel. It moves a lot of material very quickly. I'm using a coarse grit, probably about a 40 grit sanding wheel, which does move material kind of fast. You may want to start out with something a little bit less abrasive, maybe an 80 grit. But I'm going to round over the hat and I'm going to start to leave the line indicating where the hat band is. Using that same disc grinder, I'm then also going to add some relief by shaping the head of the snowman. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the inside line of the rim of the hat and just slowly start to take away material and to round over the sides of the head of the snowman. Now you can't get all of the detail with the disc grinder, but you can get the rough material roughed out. We can go back and sand the rest. I'm also going to follow the other curve on the bottom of the snowman's head, right where at the scarf line. And again, I'm just going to very carefully follow that edge. Like I said, this grinder can very aggressively move material. If you're just a little careful with it, you can follow those lines pretty easily. And I'm going to round over the edges, the sides of the face as best I can with that grinder. So here you see a little bit of relief, rounding over of the hat and rounding over of the face. I'm going to use the same disc grinder to kind of round over the edges of the body, and I'm also going to try to remove some of the paint from the bottom of my piece of scrap wood with that disc grinder. And then once I get it all cleaned up, I'm going to draw onto that the additional details that I'm going to carve in. This is basically just two gloved hands and the tail end of the scarf. I'm then going to go to a Dremel grinder, and I'm going to just use a wood tool, and I'm going to follow the lines of the outline of the scarf and also of the hands, and I'm just going to etch in on each one of those lines. So I'm really just creating a little bit of relief with the corner of that Dremel tool. These tools move wood pretty quickly, so it's fairly easy to follow that line. You can even do curved lines with the same tool. And I'm not getting rid of all the wood in between right now. I'm just really creating a line right along each one of those pencil marks, indicating the outline of the scarf as well as the outline of the hands. And this whole process, does take a few minutes. This entire snowman, I probably finished up the whole thing within 2 hours. And of course, we're going to sand, and you could go back and add some additional detail with the same Dremel tool, if you sand too much. But you can see some relief now on the scarf and also on the hands. I'm then going to use the same tool to remove the material in between those lines. And you do want to get this as smooth as you can with this tool, and it just saves you sanding at the end. We because we do want to sand all these areas kind of down a little bit so that they are at least smooth. Now I'm going to go to a sander, and I'm going to start with a number 80 grit sandpaper. I'm going to sand off all the rough edges on the rim of the hat. I'm going to sand the hat. I'm also going to sand the body. And I'm going to be careful that I really want to stay within those lines. Like, I'm not going to sand down any of the raised elements that I've already created. But I am going to start to smooth over or smooth out the face and the rough edges on the face and also on the body. And I will start with an 80, and I will go to a 220 grit, which works out really nice, especially if you're going to stain these snowmen. I'm then going to move over to another Dremel tool. This is an oscillating sander, and this works out really well for this project because it has a V-shaped sanding disc, so it allows you to get into all of the corners and all of those sharp edges very easily. You could do this by hand, but this tool just makes it a little bit easier. The next tool that we're going to go to is also a Dremel tool. This is a Dremel grinder with a cutoff wheel. And I'm just going to add some additional detail onto the scarf just by creating some lines. Now, any detail you can add to these carvings just really enhances the final product. What I'm doing is just adding a little texture to the scarf, maybe a design to the scarf, just by adding some lines, and then I'll make a checkered pattern by adding some cross lines onto it. But you could also use that same tool to outline the hands, or to outline the carrot nose, or outline the rim of the hat. I'm going to use it to add a little bit of detail onto the carrot-shaped nose, and just by adding a couple lines on either side, it just adds a little bit of texture and just makes it visually look a little bit more like a carrot. One of the last steps is just going to be using a wood burning tool to create the button eyes and the button mouth. Now at this point, this carving is ready to be stained and finished or painted. What I decided was to actually stain with a natural stain the body and the face instead of painting it white. And then I painted the scarf and I painted the hat. I then went back and decided to add buttons down the body. I certainly could have done that earlier. And that's it. A very simple, easy to make wood carved snowman. And this is designed with a flat bottom so it can be self-standing on a shelf. I also drilled a hole in the back of it so it can be hung on a nail on the wall. So it can be either self-standing or wall hung. A very unique, very easy to make do-it-yourself project. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com. If you like this video, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you.